I would be very pleased to introduce, first of all, our panelist, Paul Simmons, on your right. He's come to us from London. He was in Moscow, I understand, yesterday, and he's the UK director for easyJet airline, which I believe is the country's biggest airline in terms of seats sold. He's been there since 2006, and at easyJet you're responsible for business travel. And then Mark Tantz, he's the MD of FCM. Oh, yes, FCM Travel Solutions. Prior to that, he used to work for Otto, the mail order company. And before that, he was MD of Amadeus Germany. And now, next to Paul Simmons, we've got Bernd Schulz. And since July of last year, he's been MD of Amadeus Germany. And before that, he was top travel manager for Simmons. And before that, he was with the German German travel agency. And Richard Sebald, who was the manager of travel services at BearingPoint. Before that, he was travel analyst for the Deutsche Bank. So a warm welcome to all of our panelists, and thank you for being with us and for taking the time to come along and share your expertise. 3 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, there was this kind of rumor in our industry, which that rumor was about preferential prices for Lufthansa, and when next year the contract between Amadeus and Lufthansa expires, maybe that will become a reality. What do you think, Mr. Schulz? Well, I'm not really reckoning that that's going to happen, and I think it's a rumor that we really don't need to be too worried about. I'm fairly confident that we'll be able to sort this out before it becomes the worst case scenario. Could result in new agreements, but yes, but it's a bilateral thing, I think, between Lufthansa and Amadeus, but. Lufthansa has a new opportunity to sort of revive it in a similar form with this new German wings company. With this company, Lufthansa is going to be able to get round a GDS in supplying its tickets. Mr. Tantz, how are you going to? What's your view of these developments? Well, it's comparable, really, with the preferential prices. It's just a little bit more complex. In those days, it was fairly easy because the tariffs were in the GDF system to some extent with a surcharge, which could be compensated for in some circumstances. But now the situation is such that there are two tariffs in the GDS system. One is not going to be available in the system. And then there's the corporate tariffs, which are somewhere else, so it's all more complicated. How are we dealing with this? Well, relatively simply, we use GDS for the content, and Direct Connect for us, I think it's quite clear. Our customers expect us to provide all of the rates and to be able to access all of those rates, and so that's what we do. I mean, the low-cost carriers have been doing this for some time, so it's not that new, and non-GDS content has to be made available in a standard display these days. So you don't need to worry that you won't have any really cheap tickets anymore. No. I mean, there's going to be more work to get to this non-GDS content. You need various sources and so on that you're going to have to work out. But the tariffs and the rates will be available. They will be available. We'll make sure that that's the case. Mr. Sebald, what's your view of the future? Don't you think a scenario like this will scare some of the business travel people? Because a lot of data is now being stored in ATEA, and it'll make direct links with all sorts of people getting round GDS. It seems to be a trend. Answer. I think the airlines will start to get round the travel agencies and direct purchase their tickets, or sell their tickets rather direct, whether business travel or leisure travel, in order to keep some kind of control on their costs. I mean, travel agents, I don't know how they're going to deal with that. GDS and so on. I mean, the big thing is cost control. That's the big challenge. Mr. Schulz? Well, as we've already heard, on the one hand, German's wings is not comparable with what with the preferential prices of tariffs 3 years ago. The second point is there's a complete change in the business model of the airlines, and I think this is one aspect of that. And then I think it's a matter of philosophy. Which relevant part of your business are you going to transact via which channel? That's the decision. And as Mr. Tantz has already said, there's a question then of what the travel agencies do. Mr. Simmons, how realistic is such a scenario, so that some part of the business will not go via GDS, that in 2 or 3 years' time, for example, the travel management companies will no longer be able to offer the cheapest rate in all cases, because a lot of it circumvents the main systems?
Well, first of all, apologies for not answering in German. So it's just not good enough. So I'll speak in English if that is okay. I should probably just explain how we've gone about distribution, because it is different, and I think a lot of people are looking at what easyJet has done as a model. So we put all of our content to the GDSs, everything, all the promotional fares, all the fares, but we charge a premium of €4 per sector, and we're very transparent about that, and we've done that for the last 5 years or so. And it's now starting to get some real traction, that people can see that they can still, without having to have different systems, they can still access our fares, but pay a small premium, but it's cheaper than having a back office system of booking it on the website and then trying to reload it into a system as a dummy booking and things like that. So we've tried to be fairly neutral in terms of the way we go about putting ourselves to the trade, but saying very clearly that there will be a premium to cover our costs. This strategy has led us to move from, when we started, we were 98% of our bookings were on our website. And we're now 88% of our bookings on our website, so 12 are going through third-party systems, some of which are GDS and some of which are API links to travel trade. But this is a growing part of our business, and I think we're the only major airline that I'm aware of who are actively trying to get more business through the GDS. And I have spoken to a number of large European corporates about Direct Connect, and no one really wants to say yes at the moment. They just want to be able to pick up our best fares, recognizing there's a small premium, but our best fares through their current distribution system.
Das heißt, Sie geben GDS-Anhänger. Das heißt, Sie geben.
So in other words, you reckon that GDS has a big future?
I think GDS is changing. GDS has to recognize that it needs to change, but I think it is. As long as it's economically strong, people just don't want to have the aggregation. So if you're a corporate, you don't want to have the hassle of aggregating lots and lots of direct connects. And so I think the future is going to be in who manages the aggregation service the best. It could be the GDSs, and they're trying very hard to keep ahead of the game in this changing environment, or it could be other people. But someone's going to have to do the aggregation, because I don't think lots of individual direct connects, with very few exceptions, will be the way forward. Yeah.
Das ist auch genau die Erfahrung, die wir auch einmal in den.
Yeah, that's the experience that we've heard of in a discussion with corporates. in the final analysis, it seems that you need an aggregator for the corporates, and the feedback that we get from our customers and from the TMCs is that a neutral comparison is what's important, and the simpler it is to put the data into the systems, the easier it's going to be for the travel agents to provide a service to their clients, whoever those clients may be. So you want really standardized access via an aggregator. But Mr. Sebald, as a travel manager, would you be prepared to pay more for such a neutral solution? Well, it depends. If you've got a classical trip going from A to B with particular needs, if it's a standard thing like that, wouldn't be a problem. But we have to bear in mind that things are much more complex than that. Are we just talking about pure transport without any extras, or what about luggage and catering and this, that, and the other? At the end of the day, I think my answer probably would be yes. Yes, it would be prepared to pay extra to have a neutral and fair representation. The question is, how would we do that? Who's going to take the first step? Is it the TMC? Is it the airlines, GDSs, or the airlines as a confederation, if you like, as a group? If you look at what's happening to Air France in France and Lufthansa in Germany, companies that are traveling on these markets, they're finding it quite difficult to see their full content. Yeah, do you think, are you going to be able to sell these cheaper rates, circumventing GDSs? But are the travel agents, do they have the equipment, the technical stuff that they need for this? Yes, obviously we would prefer to have the contents in the GDS, because a neutral representation is one thing. You can get that from an online booking machine, where you've got all the content of published and web fares and other fares. You can have all of that. There's software suppliers, and there's or software available, commercial software, or own in-house systems. But that's not the point. But it's the mid and back office that's important. And you also have to bear in mind travel risk management. As a travel management company, I want to give my customers the possibility of identifying where there's a crisis or where there's a risk. And if you've only got the GDS content, you have to say, I've got a duty of care, does this cover everything that I need to bear in mind? I think all of us we would like. I hope Mr. Schulz is listening. That GDS will be able to give us all of the content. Otherwise, everyone's talking together now. Yes, the aggregators that Paul just spoke about, they obviously also are going to want to be paid in some way, or have some remuneration for this. So I think what all of this means is basically to shift expenses from one place to another. What I see, at least one of my customers says they want to get my data. I don't really care where it comes from, whether for risk management purposes or whatever. But I want I want my customer to have have clarity. If he wants to rebook, for example, he knows exactly how to contact German Wings or whatever to do the rebooking. And on the TMC side, I think they are going to have to try to provide the necessary content. In the longer term, GDS is perhaps structured to be able to provide full content, but the way things are going today, I think we're going to have some kind of interim solution for how the travel agents are going to handle this. Perhaps 6 months, 9 months' time. I mean, we don't know. In a couple of years' time, there are so many mobile devices around, and the technology is moving so fast. No doubt something can be done. But I think we need an interim arrangement involving all of the partners negotiated. Well, the company that you're representing here as a travel manager, it doesn't make any difference to him, how it's done. I mean, I think in a way this is an internal discussion. There's no traveller or business traveller is actually thinking about whether what they've got is a published fare or a web fare or anything else. All they want to do is just get from A to B, fly from A to B safely. Although there's a risk for the travel manager, if the traveller then confronts them with the rates that they've found on the web, for example. It's then difficult to determine what's relevant content as well, which services, which features fall under that. If you do talk to German Wings, you'll see that they've got much more content. It includes various additional services, which with other airlines you would have to pay extra for. Yeah, but passengers' needs are so diverse that people often want to pick out what they themselves need, and. We've obviously got our partner. We've got our partners, and a microphone, please. You were talking about additional services earlier on. I think the challenge for us on the GDS side, and also the TMCs and travel managers, if you look at the airlines and what additional services they provide. You have to first of all determine what the travel guidelines cover, what has to be paid for by the individual concerned privately. This all has to be documented, and it has to be displayed, and the travel agents ultimately have to be able to do the corresponding accounting. And I think that's a lot of extra work. I mean, are you going to compensate for things that the business travel are paid for privately, and there's also going to be extra transaction fees that would be incurred there from a travel agent. I'm sure, though, that a solution can be found. It looks like things are going to become even more complex. Mr. Simmons, what do you expect? So you go closer and closer to GDS for business travel. I mean, easyJet, I see that's what you're doing. Other airlines are moving towards more direct connect. Wouldn't it be easier for you to be able to offer companies their own individual additional services, which GDS can portray, but only indirectly? Like that, directly, you won't be able to fulfill certain customers' own particular requirements.
I think the difference with us is we've always been unbundled on GDS. So a lot of the other airlines are now trying to take away things like hold bags and other additional items they now want to charge for separately. We, from the very beginning, went on with the base fare and then the additional items. So we're coming from a slightly different position. I think one thing that hasn't kind of been mentioned so far in terms of one of the reasons for people looking at Direct Connect is transparency as well. So there is biasing going on in various parts of the system. Some, to a lesser extent in GDS, although it hasn't been completely clear, and the different ways to connect haven't always appeared the same way on the screen. So in our view, has been some biasing going on, which is now being sorted and fixed. But there's also clearly biasing happening at TMC level. So if you're a traveller or if you're a buyer, how do you know you're actually your travelers or you are being presented with the right fares and the right options? And just to illustrate the point, a very large TMC I was having a conversation with last week, a very large global TMC, not FCM. And they were just explaining how they weren't going to give us, in terms of a fair share of displaying our fares to their particular corporate clients. And I said, well, surely your best interests are to lower the fares of your corporate clients, not to bias, and increase your own revenue. And they just laughed. It was literally laughing, in terms of how can you be so stupid? We're not here for the interests of the clients, we're here for the interests of us. And this was a very large TMC. And if you're a buyer, you're going to get very fed up with that kind of attitude. And so I think over time, people are going to look to how can I get to have transparency? I'm happy to buy whatever I want to buy and whatever I see value in buying, but just show me a clear, transparent picture of the market. I think that's what Direct Connect may start to offer, or at least is the challenge, and it's the challenge which hopefully people like the GDSs are picking up and saying we can do that and we can make sure that we can give you a clear, unbalanced, unbiased view of the market.
Thanks for the transfer. We do.
Das kann ich mir vorstellen.
No.
I think there's a good point there. I mean, there's an assumption here that this can't be done with the GDS, as identifying the customer, for customer identification, for example. But today in the GDSs, you can identify customers. If you look at the Lufthansa, this is associated with its card programs. If you're a senator member, then you get a different availability report. This is something that our airlines want to do, and as we're talking, and as we're not only a GDS but also an airline provider, we're obviously interested in this development. Individual approach or outreach to the customer is necessary and has to be personalised. And I think it would be wrong to assume that you could do that with Direct Connect. I mean, I think the aggregators will also be able to offer that in future.
Of course, what remains to be addressed is the cost structure. GDS is more expensive than Direct Connect. According to Lufthansa, it's 30 euros per booking that you have to pay more. Are you willing, Mr. Sebald, to pay these extra 30 euros? I think this is an amount that needs to be put into question. I think that's an amount which is not really appropriate. I haven't been in the business for a long period of time, but I think this number does not refer to Lufthansa but Germanwings. And it's not the pure GDS fee, but these are costs which are being incurred for ticketing, BSP, credit card accounting, GDS fees, and so on and so forth. So I think this ends up with a whole package, which is sometimes being called the GBS costs. But I think this is not the correct amount. How high do you think will the extra fee be? Oh, that's an interesting one. Just give us an amount. Well, the amount as such is definitely too high, because it all depends on the business model. If you talk to the airline representatives today, and if you look at the costs in the course of Direct Connect, you've got to administer your agencies, you've got to ensure your billing system runs smoothly, and the airlines that we frequently talk to are not really prepared, neither with regards to the staff nor anything else for such a scenario. It's not a plug-and-play solution, But Mr. Sebald, I'm sorry, so sorry. But a price increase is to be expected. Are you willing to pay? Well, if I get the extra content for it, yes, of course. Because I realized that there is extra value in the travel agent. I've got one content for the travel which can control much more easily than a mix of both. One goes via the web, the other one goes via the travel agency. Now, there is an extra benefit in it because there is a greater effort involved. So it's worth an extra amount, not really 30 euros, but far less. And then we've got to wait and see how the system is going to be implemented. But I think here we need the support of the travel agents, because Direct Connect does not only mean that it's something that's connected to my online tool, but the question also means Direct Connect to the travel agents. To me would mean that I have to establish contact to the persons in the travel agency, so I have to do the work. And, I'd love to compete in this regard. It always sounds as if Direct Connect would be completely new. It's nothing new. These low-cost carrier discussions have been around for a while. Everybody's prepared for it. Everybody's ready for it. It just causes a major effort. And as you said, or Mr. Schulz has said, changing a booking, of course, is an issue. Because if you book a flight with a low-cost carrier, then you can easily change your booking. Of course, I can't do this as a private traveler as well, but that's just an aside. But the traveler assumes, and that's exactly what the extra benefit is that the travel agent has to average, that we take care of the entire trip. And if you fly one tour with one route with Lufthansa and the other one with a direct connect airline, it's more difficult to manage it. With GDS, it's a different story. You know, changing a booking can all be done automatically. Yeah, but in concrete terms, this really means that all fares have to be offered. You know, let's refer to the largest German airline or its cheapest subsidiary. It's saying that the cheapest fare is not offered via the GDS because it's not needed. It's not meant to be offered for business travelers. But it goes out to the typical low-cost travelers, those who want to save money when they go on a private trip. Mr. Tantz, can you really separate the clients in this regard? Can you really say that this fare is not euro, it's starting off with 33 euros, because it's not meant to be offered to the business travelers as well? Well, that's an interesting approach, but the question is how many of them are available. The direct connect is the direct connect. No matter whether you offer the basic fare or the smart and best fare as well. The direct connect is the direct connect. You know, if you plug it in, you get all the content that you want. The only question is it worth it making this effort in connection with the extra money I've got to pay because the other two fares available in the GDR are more expensive. They cost 10 or 15 euros more for each route compared to the comparable and competitive route. That's the question. Is it worth the extra effort? That's something you need to take into account. But since Direct Connect is available to German Wings, for example, it's been around for quite a while, I can get the cheapest fare. And then it's up to the client to decide, do you want to travel without luggage, without a snack, or do you want to get that? That's up to the client to decide. I've got the feeling as well that it's not really the appropriate product for business travelers. And we in German travel agencies have got more to offer, so we'll definitely move into that direction, and we have done so. These fares, if they're going to be made available as of July the 1st, will be made available. Whether they will be used or not remains to be seen. Some things are only available because they have to be made available in order to be able to provide full content. Mr. Simmons, with easyJet, you did not only enter the DDS market, but in the field of business trips, you have done a lot. A couple of years ago, easyJet was not an airplane for business travelers. It was more meant to be compatible to Ryanair. Now every sixth passenger is a business traveler, 10 million in total last year. You've got your own fare options for business travelers, including priority boarding, flexibility, extra luggage. But of course, it's also a fare which goes far beyond the basic fare or the ordinary fare that you offer on the web. What do your travel managers book? Your clients, do they book this business fare, this extra, more expensive fare, or do they go for the regular fares?
That was very good. The majority of what we sell is our standard fares still, but we have been working with corporates and TMCs and also with the GDSs on loading and bringing out some different fares. So we have a flexible fare which we've had for about a year or so, which has all the ancillary things, as we would call them, all the extras packaged into the fare, as well as flexibility. And we're working on other GDS fares not yet announced, which will again separate us from what's available on the website. So our basic vision is that through GDS or through any of the of our third-party connections, you can get all of the content. But we're also now trying to get some different content which is more tailored towards business travelers. One of the reasons we've managed to get that 10 million business travelers a year is because we're on more of the point-to-point routes in Europe than any other airline. So if you look at by volume, the point-to-point routes within the EU, at the top 100, we're on 48, which is more than any other airline, more than Lufthansa or Air France or KLM. So we've deliberately tried to grow our network on cities with heavy traffic and heavy business traffic, and that is why we're starting to see the numbers come through. And what we're trying to do now is to tailor our fare product to meet the needs of those travellers.
Mr. Tantz, it is also possible for OPEs to get much more strongly involved in Direct Connect. Lufthansa has already announced that Germanwings is going to offer a fare of 33 euros without any extra ancillary costs via Sidetrack. Don't you think that now there is an increase that the DBEs will really compete much more strongly with the travel agents? With regards to online booking engines, it's very important to realize that you reach a level of saturation. When you read the newspaper articles in the press, you will realize with 829, we were really on the move. A lot of costs were cut. Online savings are the lowest with the OTMCs, but also the travelers realized that it's easier to pick up the phone and make a booking than it is to find your way through the online booking machine. It's also more expensive. Well, it always depends. It depends on the business model that you have with your TMC, and it depends on the value of your working time. But I don't think that it is that way. I think you have reached a level of saturation, and the point-to-point connections between Frankfurt and Munich, of course, they are being booked online. Why not? You know, we also proceed in that fashion. But as soon as something more complicated needs to be added, such as rental cars or hotels, there you reach a level of saturation. I think you won't go beyond 30% of the bookings made online. You can't go further, because you offer all the content already today. Prices already today differ with regards to some OEMs, so I think the problem will not aggravate even further. How about online bookings with you? Have you reached 30% already? 3 weeks ago, we made our review for 2012, and we had an online booking rate of 93%, believe it or not, 93%. Sometimes it's 96. In some months, it's only 89, but on average, it's 93. We've got a booking rate of 16 days prior to the flight. And, you know, we make use of the flights which are on offer. If our staff members say, well, there is a cheap flight from Frankfurt to Berlin, I don't have to take any luggage with me, all I have to bring is my laptop, then go on, make a booking, and reserve a seat. But if you go on a trip for a week, if you've got to check in your luggage, you might want to buy a different ticket altogether. What's decisive for me is that there is a single point of entry. You enter, make a booking, get a return ticket. If you want to change the booking, if things get complicated, well, if you've got to book more than 2 routes, pick up the phone and don't use the online tool. So complicated trips are being booked offline with the help of the travel agent, because here things run more smoothly. The travel agents are more effective and efficient. They offer better fares as well. And our strategy is that you should come up with the right mixture. But it always depends. In some corporations, people are saying, well, we make online bookings only and exclusively. I just wanted to mention that we have not published a press release, but you can also book cheap fares on AETM, the online booking tool of Amadeus. Here, the cheap fares are also being made available with the help of this tool. And in the background, we use a Direct Connect. Now, what you've just explained, many point-to-point connections in Europe and in Germany, are they being booked with the help of OBE in Germany today? Now, this entire discussion, isn't it not really a bit too confusing? Also, with regards to Germanwings, we talk about point-to-point connections, European flights, domestic flights in Germany. Maybe they are not being booked that frequently offline anymore as well. American Express, for example, also announced that several thousands of staff members for business travel will be fired because business travelers make more and more of their bookings online. So aren't we sort of get carried away in a discussion which is not really in line with reality? No, I don't think so. What's decisive for me is that we have something to offer, and if somebody makes a point-to-point booking, comes back with the reporting and everything that was booked, I get the information that I want. Let us once again use the example of Lufthansa. Germanwings is not only supposed to offer the route from Frankfurt to Munich and everything else has to be found elsewhere. That would be too difficult. Because that would be much more expensive than having the data being consolidated by the travel agent. But if you make a booking by the travel agent and if you go about it as explained by Hans, be it basic or the best fare, and if you consolidate your data, that's fair enough. That's how it works. I don't think that we'll keep on working along these lines, but that's exactly the added value. Of course, you can make your booking via Opodo or Expedia, but there's nothing to it. There's nothing happening in the background. The major effort takes place in the back office. Go to a travel agent. Here you get a neutral depiction of all the fares. You get additional background information. You get the travel risk management tool, reporting. Everything's integrated, included the invoice, and that's what the corporation pays for. But the value added doesn't change whether you are in a discussion with Germanwings or not. The discussion doesn't really change. And of course, the client needs to get the content that he would also get on the website, because otherwise your travelers would call you up and say, well, I booked a ticket for 33 euros. Well, I'll try to find that, by the way. I found it. Why can't I get it when I try to contact you? So it's got to be made available, no matter whether it's being booked or not.
We were talking earlier on about full content. A lot of experts of the industry say full content is not as important as it used to be. I mean, in days gone by, it used to be so important. But is it really the case that a GDS or a travel agent, do they really have to offer a business traveller full content, or is full content something that belongs to the past? Paul Simmons, what's your comment on that?
I think unless your agent can offer you the best fare in the market, then you're not going to see value in your agent. So you're absolutely right what you say about the back office and the things which are not seen add huge amounts of value, but you also have to make sure that the agent is be able to offer what is seen to be the best fares. So we completely believe in full content, and we feed through to the GDSs and others just a straight mirror of what's available on our website.
Herr Schulz, brauchen Sie, müssen Sie als GDS? Sie würden sich dem anschließen.
Mr. Schulz, what's your comment on that? I would agree with what's just been said, yeah. I think there's an expectation of this. Our TMC partners, for example, need to be able to offer full content, all of the rates available from an airline. They have to be able to offer the customers full content. I think there may be a debate about relevant content, because that is a kind of a parallel discussion at the moment. We believe that full content is the right way forward for the future. Mr. Sebald. Is GDS full content essential for you? I used a booking machine recently to just for fun, and just to work out, do I finish up with the right flight, etc., etc. But I would say my answer would be yes, because my partner, my partner has to know that they're getting the best deal from me. So I have to be able to display what is actually available on the market. Otherwise, people are beginning to start doubting my expertise. Relevant full content. What is that? That is the content that a traveller will find on all the websites. And as a travel manager, I wouldn't want to even start on this debate because, all the business travellers, if we didn't offer the full content, then obviously all the business travellers in the country would be phoning us up and asking why not. So I think full content has to be full content. Okay, that brings us more or less to the end of our session. I think we can largely say that our panelists are largely in agreement. I'd like to thank you for your interesting contributions, your input. I would like to thank the audience for listening so patiently, and hope that we will meet again next year. Thank you very much indeed. Bye.